and you get to start fall camp. I think fall camp is incredibly important. I think that's where you find the identity of your football team. It's really where you create it, I guess, more than say find it. It's a little different than the other times of the year. It's hard every day. Even in spring, you can go hard throughout spring, but you have a day off in between. The way we set ours up, these guys are constantly challenged. They're expected to take coaching, make corrections and adjustments in a short amount of time, and under difficult circumstances. There's no secret. It's hot here, and that's an advantage that we have. So operating in those conditions are really good for us. I think this is where you find out who you can trust. We talk a lot about guys and the way that we like to do it, where you recruit and you develop and then you retain them. Well, part of the college football landscape is developing the next group of guys to step up and go play. And everyone's always got hesitation about them going out there and doing it. Well, I think if you do fall camp right, you got a pretty good indication of who's going to do it in the games. And the identity of the teams that I think is important. I think number one, your team has to be together. I've said this 100 times. Team still matters. It's really important to create that chemistry and that togetherness. And that's what I think separates the really good teams from the average teams. Accountability is certainly something I don't think you can be in any organization without that. Everyone's expected to meet or exceed the standards. I heard you guys talking about black and white, there is no gray. Well, that's what you set throughout the course of the year. You set those standards and what's acceptable. And, we kind of define accountability as, doing what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, exactly the way you say you're going to do it. And everyone knows what's expected of them. You have to have toughness. Football is still a tough game. It's a game for tough people, and mental and physical toughness is something you have to choose. When you go out there and you practice in the morning and it's, God knows how hot with what kind of humidity, you got to choose to go out there and work at a certain level. So every day you got to make a choice to choose toughness. And that's what we challenge our team to do. And I think lastly, you need a team that's relentless. There's a huge difference in having goals and chasing them. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to relentlessly pursue what you want every day, not just on Saturdays and not just at the end of the year when you only think it matters. Chasing something and pursuing something relentlessly requires a different type of focus and intent. All this being said, you create this identity by building it. You build it through hard practices. You create competition at each different position group, and you have to simulate game-like situations. We talked about these positions. You guys talked about quarterback battles and position battles all over the place. We have a talented group of players. That's something that we work really hard to make sure we have enough. Now it's about who performs in practice. That's the best indicator of who's going to do it on Saturday. So we're really excited about it. We have a group of guys that have worked incredibly hard. We had a great off season from January all the way through now, which I think gives us an opportunity to have a good football team. But really, realistically, the next 4 weeks through fall camp, that's going to really determine the DNA of this team and how far we can go. So excited about what we've got going on. Really good group of players and coaches coming back, and can't wait to see them get to work.
You had talked about setting the standard. What can you say about the players holding each other accountable to keep that standard set?
If you don't have player-led accountability, you're not going to have a very good football team. And the reality of it is, coaches, I think as a coach, you have to do those things as much as it's required, so you can try to have the best season you can. But the reality of it is, if your team doesn't hold each other accountable, you're not going to be a very good team. It pulls coaches away from doing their job, and it forces you to police things that realistically, only the locker room can handle that. So that's something that we talk about a lot, and I think it's been really good. You talk about, you can't hold people accountable until you are leading from the front and you're showing them the way, you're showing them how to do it. No one respects someone that comes in and says, you should do those things, and I'm not exactly living the right way. So we've worked really hard, I think, on building leadership throughout this program for years. I think the group last year did an excellent job of setting that standard, and these guys this year have really kind of carried it forward. So, accountability is something I think you're always working on. It's hard, it's human nature. Someone calls you out on something you don't do very well, first reaction is to get defensive. So it's something, again, you're trying to break that first reaction and saying, you know what, you're right, and that's something that I think is a constant work in progress, but happy with where we are right now. We'll find out in a couple of days when it's hot and they're tired and it's really hard, how willing we are to be held accountable.
How unique is this quarterback battle going into camp for you in your career, even going back to high school, in that none of them have really played for any substantial amount of time? How unique is that, and is it more challenge, or how is that going to play out?
Well, I mean, realistically, it's no different than it was in 22. You know, you had Ben and Chandler and Lance. I mean, Jesus, we had like 7 quarterbacks on scholarship. None of them had played. So it's all part of it. I mean, again, I think the thing that you have to do is you have to put them in the most stressful, difficult situations that you can, and expect that to carry over to games. I mean, that's the closest way that you can do it. So, you know, it's talent. It's 3 really talented players, and it's 3 guys that are winners. You know, I mean, all 3 of them have won state championships in their high school careers. I mean, every quarterback in that room has, actually. They're winners. They're competitive. You know, and, you know, I think the biggest thing is we have a good group around them. So you're not expecting them to go out there and win the game by themselves. Hey, just do your 111th, do your job really well, you know, help this offense go. Don't hurt us by turning the ball over and making critical errors and things like that, and we'll be fine. So, you know, I mean, we've been here before. You know, it's very similar probably to 22. It's just we're at 3 instead of, you know, going in the spring that year, I think we're at 5. So this makes it a little bit easier to manage the reps.
Is the progress of the offensive line the biggest thing? It sounded like Tim kind of thought that way. And if so, what's the main message that, or the main area of the offensive line's got to make that next step to be what y'all need to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about opinions. Everybody's entitled to them, even people on your own staff. Yeah, I don't know. I think our offensive line was really good this spring. You know, I think that unit's always hard to get them. You know, I say this all the time. I think the hardest thing in sports is to get 5 people to play and move and communicate as one. And I think the more reps you get at that, the better. But I've been really pleased with that group. You know, to be quite honest with you, I feel like we have a lot of depth there. You know, I mean, you got a couple position groups, right? I think O-line and receiver, you've got both of those are really the same. I think we feel really confident in what we have in those 2 rooms. They just haven't really had to be the guys yet in a lot of instances. But, you know, I mean, on the O-line, I mean, Bryant Williams played 50% of every game last year. Caden Morrow played in every game last year that mattered. Cooper Fordham has played in almost every game last year. The year before, as a true freshman, had to step in and start at the end of the year when we had to win games, and played really well. So there's a lot of confidence in those guys. And, you know, even guys like John Bragg and Mackey at the back end of last year that really got meaningful snaps. I feel really good about that group. I think the biggest thing we got to do is keep them healthy. And if we can do that, I think that unit's going to be better than last year.
Do you think that group will rotate more this year because you have guys that have seen some action?
Yeah, we plan on it for sure. You know, I think that's twofold, right? It allows you to play guys early on before they have to play, right? And you get them in the mix and you get them experience. And then I think it helps you on the back end too, longevity-wise. You know, it takes some snaps off of guys that, you know, 15 snaps a game, maybe taking it off of someone. Now, you have to have someone who goes in there and plays well. You know, they can't go in there and screw it up. But I think if you have a bunch of guys that deserve to play and can go play winning football for you, then, yeah, it certainly the plan is to rotate them a bunch. And, you know, I mean, last year in week 2, we had 2 starters out when we went to Kennesaw State. So it's just the nature of what it is. You know, I mean, it can happen fast. And then after Kennesaw State, we lost a backup who started that game for the year. So, yeah, I think the more that you can play those guys early that deserve to, then you need to. I mean, Matthew Broussard's a guy that's been here for a long time, had a great spring, had a great summer. So, you know, you're trying to find 8 that you feel really good with. But, you know, this year, you know, I think we'll have, you know, 10. I think we'll have a 2 deep that we feel like we can win with.
What do you want to see from your running backs this fall, and what do some of the other ones behind Bill Davis and Zylan Perry, what do you want to see them do to earn that 3rd spot?
Well, I think you want to see the 2 guys that have played a lot take the next step. You know, Zylan's done a really good job. He's gained really good weight, you know, and he looks really good. He's moving great with it. You know, I think for Zylan, continue to improve in pass protection. He's gotten better at it, but he's got to continue to improve there. You know, this spring he made some runs that were really, really impressive. You know, that got. I think a running back's job is to maximize potential in every gain, right? You know, get more than what's actually there. And Zylan has shown the ability to be able to do that. You know, we need him just to continue to do that consistently. Bill, I thought, started the season really hot last year, and I thought probably the first 6, 7, 8 games of the year was really pretty special for us. I felt like it kind of towards the end of the year just didn't finish the way that we needed him to and wanted him to. Bill's done a really good job. This offseason's been phenomenal for him. He's gotten his weight down. He's down to 220 to 225 right now. He's moving really good. And you go through a college football season. It's a long season. Last year, especially, there were 2 bye weeks in there, kind of pushed the whole thing back. This year, just want him to finish it like he starts. And I think if he does that consistently throughout the course of the whole year with him and Zylan, we'll have a really good 1-2 punch. The young guys behind him, I think right now I would say it's definitely Darrell and Steve-O that are battling for that 3rd spot right now. And they've both flashed throughout the spring. They're extremely hard workers. They've done a really good job picking everything up. It's going to be about them. It's going to be consistency, understand the pass protection stuff, where that way, if, or when they get their opportunity to get in there, they can go in there and go perform at a high level. Certainly that's the fastest way to get your butt yanked out of there as a running back. You don't know pass pro and you get the quarterback killed because you screw it up. That's something that they've got to do. They both have the ability to run and get yards. They're a little different. Steven's really a little bit more of a bruiser, downhill guy. Darrell is kind of similar a little bit, but he's probably got a little bit more wiggle. But, both of them, I think skill set wise, that's not a question. They both catch it well out of the backfield. They both run really well. They really maximize their opportunities. They see it well. So it'll be fun to see those guys battle for it because I think it's 2 really good young players that are up and coming.